if you're ever approached by law enforcement and compelled to share your phone, they can compel you to unlock your phone and look at your data with Face ID or other biometrics. They cannot compel you to insert a PIN because that's covered under the Fourth Amendment.
Hi, everyone. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to take a moment to give a shout out to my amazing Supercast subscribers. Your continued support means the world to me. As a Supercast member, you get exclusive access to the unfiltered, ad-free video versions of our Health Unchained interviews, raw, real, and packed with insights. You're not just supporting the show, you're fueling the conversations at the cutting edge of healthcare and blockchain innovation. So thank you for being a vital part of this journey. If you're interested in joining, you can learn more about Supercast in the episode description.
Hi, I'm your host, Ray Dogan, and welcome to Health Unchained. On this show, I will be speaking with healthcare entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and executives who are using blockchain technologies to revolutionize healthcare. These innovators are building the distributed infrastructure and diverse communities required for a trusted, secure, and decentralized healthcare ecosystem. Enjoy the show.
What is blockchain?
Was ist Blockchain?
What is blockchain?
The doctor will see you now.
Remember, the Health Unchained podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and we are not providing any sort of legal, financial, or medical advice. Please do your own research and due diligence before making any important decisions related to these matters. And now please enjoy episode 123 of Health Unchained.
I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Anna Hall, founder and CEO of Embody Space, which has created a menstrual cycle tracking and wellness app that is locally encrypted and also in the process of being open source. In addition to being a staunch privacy advocate, Anna is also a mother of two and a women's health educator. We'll be discussing the critical importance of data privacy in a post-Roe v. Wade era. And thank you all for subscribing to the Supercast membership community. Really appreciate your support over the years. And with that, let's get started. Anna, why don't you kind of go over your background a little bit for the audience?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to dig into the privacy piece of what we're doing, because that's really the heart of what Embody is all about. A bit about my background: it's non-traditional, and I started in public education. So for about 10 years, I taught in public schools in the Bay Area and Atlanta, and I specialized in teaching students who are nonverbal to use high-tech communication devices. So it's really fun, really rewarding. And demanding. I took a break from that during COVID because I had young kids. And when I came back to the working world, I was like, okay, what do I do? But while I was teaching, I was also kind of living the startup roller coaster with my partner, who has several startups. That's why we moved to the Bay. I've seen the startup go from, just an idea to going public. And that's just like such a thrill. So when I was looking for what I want to do next, obviously very passionate about education. And right now, very passionate about menstrual health education. I saw a huge need. Part of my background is that at 31 was diagnosed with something called PMDD. And what that is just like an atypical reaction to the fluctuation in hormones throughout the month. And so I became a menstrual cycle nerd, just learning about everything I could about your cycle. It's really like biohacking for women. So you learn about your cycle, you know how to work it, you can do a lot to improve your life and your well-being. So was on that journey, trying to figure out what to do next in the startup game. And then Roe was overturned. And I really saw a big need for a private period tracker.
Thanks for sharing that background. Really appreciate it. I think it's important for the audience to understand like where you're coming from and really the purpose behind what you're building. So I appreciate that. And, just so the audience understands, you were diagnosed with PMDD. How common is that actually?
Yeah. Yeah, it's about 5% of menstruating women. So it's not super common. And I had never heard of it before I was diagnosed. And part of the diagnosis is to track your cycle and related symptoms for 3 months. And so that's when I began using a period tracker. And actually 1 in 3 women in the United States use a period tracker, which is mind-boggling. It's a very useful tool, but unfortunately, the biggest period trackers have a pretty nefarious history of selling women's menstrual data. Our biggest competitor was sued by the FTC in 2019. They just settled recently, but they're continuing to raise and, be a little less safe with women's data than we need to be.
Yeah, and they're not just selling it to marketers, but also government agencies are getting a hold of this data as well. And I think that's some of the concerns people are having now.
Exactly. And I think, okay, so like to dive into that more, what you're talking about and what our users are faced with, period trackers users are faced with is if you live in a state with restrictive abortion bans, like my state, I live in Georgia. I'm in Atlanta right now. If you have any menstrual health data that exists on apps, the company that holds that data can be subpoenaed and hand over your data in the case of a suspected abortion. And that data can then be used to prosecute court of law. We haven't seen that happen yet. I imagine it has happened, but we haven't heard about it. And then we're seeing things like people using Facebook Messenger data to successfully put women behind bars for abortions. So, I mean, the threat is real. It's present. It's going to be increasing. Attorneys generals all around the country are concerned about this, messaging to talk about it, and there's real threat here for women and their safety and their privacy related to their menstrual health data existing and the standard for period trackers, which is we're breaking standard.
I hear you. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
what's interesting and also very challenging is that each state is different, right? So, sure,
Yeah.
our constitutional right nationwide has been overturned for abortion, but state by state, it really can vary. So, I'm from Massachusetts. Women in this state, I don't think have much of an issue. People actually probably would come to Massachusetts potentially to have any certain procedures. So, how does one navigate that? It seems like such a
It's so
complicated
complicated. Yeah,
thing.
it
Yeah.
really is. And it's so different state per state. I think a good resource is called the 19th. It's a website that tracks us very closely. They have like a map of the US and you can click on a state and learn what exactly the restrictions are and what's happening in that state around those restrictions. I think
Perfect. Thanks
it's
for
my
sharing that.
favorite quick resource. I mean, it's like, I was talking to my very well-informed sister-in-law the other day who has been following my journey in this for a long time. And, she wasn't aware. And I think a lot of people aren't aware that even in Texas, people are incentivized to kind of out somebody for having an abortion. So it's not just local law enforcement. Like somebody might get paid $10,000 for handing over your Facebook Messenger data that says, hey, I'm having this procedure. It's really crazy.
It is really crazy. And it seems like unfair as well. So this podcast, as you know, we try to talk about the intersection of healthcare issues, as well as new technologies such as blockchain technology. And I know you're very familiar with Web3 and, having this Embody app be open source and locally encrypted. Can you discuss a little bit more about the structure or the technology stack of the app? I'm just kind of curious about that. And I'm sure our audience is as well. Like what makes it private?
Yeah. What makes us different? So I think like our origin story makes us different. And that is we were incubated by a cryptography studio based in Atlanta called Pieces. And it is focused on primarily cryptocurrency, but also building privacy products. So freedom tech. So that's kind of how we got our start. And two things I really learned there is that the safest way to protect data is to not have it. And then the next safest way to protect data is to encrypt it. And so I think simple is better. And so as far as tech stack is concerned, it's React Native. We have an app that exists locally on people's phones. Data is encrypted locally on their phones in different ways, depending on whether they have iPhone or Android and what version they have. And we don't have it. So if we get subpoenaed, which we could be, we just don't have people's data to share. It doesn't exist for us. So, and there are some options for people to find this elsewhere, but nobody starts with privacy. And we believe really strongly we're building a business that begins with privacy. And we are offering an option for people to have encrypted backup of their data, but it's always an option and an opt-in moment. And that data will also be encrypted.
Right. And so there's no cloud essentially that's storing all the,
Right.
how many users do you have ish?
Right now we have about 50,000 users, which is really
50,000
exciting.
users.
We just launched in November
Significant, I
publicly.
think
So
so.
it's been a wild ride.
So if you think about these 50,000 women who are sharing their menstrual data on a monthly, maybe weekly, daily basis, this different types of information, if it were stored on a cloud and if were subpoenaed, you'd have to hand over some, maybe individuals, but it's not really the right way to go. So the approach that you're specifically taking, which is don't have the data, can't share it, makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
And I have heard of other companies being subpoenaed, and some of them have, I think, said sure. Others have said no. I think, for
Right.
example, I read recently an app called Clue has
Yeah.
said no to government officials asking for this data. But the
Right.
fact that Clue still has the ability potentially to share it, or maybe if they get hacked or there's a data breach, that data can still get out there too. So there is still that potential risk, even though they're taking the stance of no, we're not going to share it. It doesn't mean it might not get out there somehow. So there's still that risk.
Absolutely. And what we've learned is that, if you download an app that's supposed to be a useful tool for you, and they're asking all these privacy questions, you're going to click yes, right? You just want to use the thing. And so a big part of what we're doing is we're making it really easy to be safe and to be private, because that's the standard. That should be the standard, but instead it's simplified, right? So our competitors, like the ones you mentioned and others, it's not that there's one that's pretty iffy, but the incentives, they don't align. So what they're trying to do is build a profitable business, and a lot of the times that business has been based on sharing women's data. Okay, so they're kind of having to backtrack with all these privacy concerns and say, oh no, we won't share it. You just have to trust us. And this is where open source comes in, right? So the trust has been broken for period tracker users, right? They have sold our data. They have been sued for it. They have profited off of my menstrual health data. We're saying we will not. And to prove and verify that we are not, we are open sourcing.
That's
So
great.
that's why.
So you say you're open sourcing. Is it already available, or are
No. So
you?
we're going
No.
through the audit process,
Okay.
and we will be open sourcing in the near future, which is really exciting for us.
Very exciting. Yeah. Thanks for
Yeah.
clarifying that. So if selling women's period data is not your business model, how do you make money then? You mentioned that you're going to
Yeah.
start doing premium membership.
Yeah. Yeah. Around International Women's Day is when we're launching our paid version. And what we're offering to people is, number one, privacy. People are ready to pay for privacy. We know this. That's a trend in the market. The second thing we know is people need more support around their cycle. If you're on Instagram or TikTok or even Twitter, you can see people learning about how to hack their cycle. So it's called living phase based. So there are 4 phases in your menstrual cycle, each with different strengths and weaknesses. And once you know that, you can really, live well according to your cycle, and which is very different than how we've been kind of taught to live in a more masculine society. And so people want those resources. And so what we're doing is we're collecting experts in these areas that kind of live between the space of MDs and TikTok, who really know their stuff and are ready to share. And so we're offering cycle syncing content, encrypted backup. And then what we're really excited about building in this year in 2025, after we ship our paid version, is a safe space for women to connect with each other. We want to incorporate a decentralized social component of the app.
I think that's a great idea. I think people want to hear it from other women and kind of, share experiences with each other, especially stuff you don't want to share online necessarily. You want to
Yeah.
kind of talk to a person directly. I mean, I can even share with my wife when she had our child last year. She participated in something called Baby Cafe. It was for breastfeeding and things like that. But it was, I think, very helpful. She would,
Mhm.
on a weekly basis, meet with other women who are breastfeeding, and it really helped her, our baby, and I think our relationship overall. So I recommend, any kind of in life local connection for any health reasons, really, not just period tracking or breastfeeding. But I think that's something that we're starting to understand better now, because sure, we can go to visit our doctor or our health team maybe, but being able to talk to people who have experienced it firsthand and get those tips and tricks that no one really has written down, I think that's really critical.
Yeah. And, really women's health is largely researched, under-resourced. We know this. It's like 2% of, medical studies include women directly, and how different things affect women. So it's wild. And so we do need to live in the space between what's available in research journals and from our doctors, and then, what's available from just some like wacko online giving advice. We need people who know about this stuff, and we need to be able to talk to them in a safe space. And I think we're really focusing on largely underserved areas, like people who have breastfeeding struggles, people who have PMDD or PCOS or endometriosis. Fertility has a long time been the focus of period trackers, but there's so much more than getting pregnant or not getting pregnant.
For sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So many people across the country are living in these red states, conservative states. Can you sort of share some advice for those people? Like, how do they
Yes.
navigate this whole thing?
Yeah. Know the laws from your state, number one, which is like, it's hard to know. So like I said, like go to the 19th, look it up. And then
And I'll share that
another thing,
resource on the show
yeah,
notes too, the 19th. So if you're interested,
thank
please
you.
check that out.
Yeah, it's a good one. And then we're actually doing a privacy 101 series on Instagram. It's embody.space on Instagram and TikTok. And we're providing some tips. Here's some quick ones for people. Use a PIN to lock your phone instead of Face ID or biometrics if you can stand it. I'll be honest and say I really like the ease of biometrics, so I use them. But if you're ever approached by law enforcement and compelled to share your phone, they can compel you to unlock your phone and look at your data with Face ID or other biometrics. They cannot compel you to insert a PIN because that's covered under the Fourth Amendment. So to get back to like having to put in your PIN for your phone, just click the power button on your iPhone 5 times. Or if you're an Android, you've got to go through the security measures to switch to PIN.
Really interesting advice. I did not know that. So
Yeah.
thanks for sharing
Most
that.
people don't. Yeah.
So I'm looking at the 19th now. I'm actually curious how many states is it like 15 states that are currently outright outlawing abortions?
I don't have the number in my brain, and it is
It's
shifting
changing. Yeah.
often, but that sounds about right.
So shifting gears a little bit, going back to the compliance side of things and regulations, how does Embody ensure compliance with HIPAA and GDPR?
Such a good question. So menstrual health data is not covered by HIPAA. And this is exactly why people have been able to capitalize on the profitability of menstrual health data. There are some states that are tackling it, like Washington. So HIPAA and GDPR were designed to protect consumers, right? But they're also making it harder for innovative health tech to come in and protect users. So what we've built is not only following these regulations, it kind of lives outside of these regulations, but it's also like really talking to the spirit of the regulations and protecting these consumers. I think it's something that's little known and really interesting and very niche to specifically what we're doing in Embody.
So I want to ask you, you've heard of the DeSci movement, decentralized science space, right? In the blockchain Web3 world, people are raising lots of money in order to do different types of research, and it's community based. And it's part of it is really great. Other parts are scammy, as new technology that kind of just happens. And I want to just send a mention to Athena DAO, which is a women's reproductive health community that's trying to raise money to study actual
Athena
health
DAO.
of women's. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you collaborating? Curious, actually, if you guys are collaborating in any way
Not
at the
yet.
moment. Okay.
I'd reached out to Laura and we met at a conference last year and I got to hear her talk. And I think that there's something, my brain's spinning and I'm ready to like get to that type of collaboration because I think it's so fascinating. And I think what Athena DAO is doing for women's health is very much needed, very innovative, and I think it's effective. So I don't know. I have some ideas, but yeah, she and I need to get together and chat.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I think if anyone is listening here and hasn't heard Laura speak, there's an episode of Health Unchained with her, and I'll put that in the show notes as well for you all to check out. But I guess my question is, having this opportunity to go open source, and you guys are doing an audit to get there, what are some of the plans, if any, around using Web3 technologies as well?
Yeah. So like what I was talking about is what we really want is a safe way for like peer-to-peer conversations to happen. So I'll talk about specific ways we're hearing from our users right now. Oh, we really want a way to share this information with our partners. Okay. We really want a way to talk to small groups of women about the problems we're having. Okay. We really want a way to talk to providers like nutritionists who are focused on menstruation or, fitness instructors who are focused on menstruation to have conversations where we're not afraid of what we're going to say. And so, decentralized social is more than blockchain. You don't have to build on crypto rails to like have decentralized social. But the way that we will be using the blockchain is to keep track of usernames. I mean, blockchain is good for statements of fact, right? And making sure that people's identity isn't susceptible. So
So
that's likely how we will be using it in the near future.
yeah, makes sense. Sort of like identity management, self-custody, essentially,
Correct.
of people's data. That makes sense.
Mhm.
Do you think there's any barriers to getting there in terms of
Oh my
using
gosh, yes.
blockchain?
Totally. And honestly, I think the biggest barrier is not really friendly to women. I think, and like part of what I really want to do, I really like what like Maggie Love is doing with Shifi or what Lauren McQuinney is doing with Athena Dow. Is just like calling women in, saying, "Hey, this is our space too. We need to learn about this. We need to be, well versed in this." But in order to do that, in order for people to kind of see the benefits of blockchain and what free technology is to make it more approachable for women, a lot of like the memes, the culture that it's a little bit off-putting sometimes. And so I want to be a part of that. I want to be able to collaborate with people and then call women
Yeah, the space can seem a little strange sometimes. So finding the
in.
right way to, address your specific users
Yeah.
that doesn't scare them off, kind of, take your time with that. I think it makes sense. So I really appreciate this conversation. I have a few final questions to ask. One is, what's your outlook for 2025
Oh, uh,
in terms of, I guess there's a lot of things to cover. So politically speaking, I'm curious about, and also you kind of mentioned a little bit what's going to happen with the company and the app, but you can kind of reshare that.
sure. Yeah. So prepare for the unexpected. Like I think we need to all be ready to think outside the box, be innovative with solving problems that, we don't even know the problems that are going to exist at the end of the year, I don't think. But I think the way, like, particularly women or people who are concerned about reproductive rights are going to achieve this is through smaller communities and local communities and then joining forces. That's just really how I see this going. So getting active with the community, building a community, those are kind of my focuses this year, both for myself personally and Embody. It's about creating safe communities to have real discussions and to solve problems in an innovative way. We are going to be launching our paid version, which is really exciting, around March. And then after that, we're going to be building decentralized socials for Embody.
That's awesome. And you mentioned International Women's Day, which is March
Yeah.
8th for everybody listening in. Next question. What is the most influential book you've read?
Oh, okay, here we go. So my growth team, which is small, we're actually all in Atlanta, so we get together once a week. And we've been reading together. We've been reading a book called Proposals for the Feminine Economy. And it kind of it poses the question, if capitalism is a system that's built on masculine traits, what could an economy look like that is built on feminine traits? So it's really interesting. It's something to think about. It's kind of out there. It's been pretty helpful to synthesize with a team that's focused on, doing this for individuals. So
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. What is your favorite way to stay physically active and like healthy and fit? Yeah.
so many ways, but I guess my favorite way is there are a lot of like little places to hike in Atlanta.
Hmm.
It's not like the Bay Area where you go 30 minutes and you see like a beautiful view in any direction. But there are like these hidden gems around Atlanta that are really quirky to go and hike. I guess my favorites, if you're in Atlanta, are Cascade Falls, where there are like people in the area practice Santeria, and you'll see like a watermelon floating at the bottom of a waterfall. It's very weird. There's Arabian Mountain, which is like a granite outcropping, so it's like climbing shards of granite, but it's fun. And then Dollhead Trail, which is self-explanatory. So yeah, I like hiking.
Hiking is awesome. And it's a little bit of exercise. You're walking around, just all the steps, and also what you're seeing too, like the greenery also is very um great for mental health too. So
It
something called
is.
social prescribing had a few episodes ago about that. So
Cool.
just wanted to mention. So Hannah, I really do appreciate this conversation. What's the best way for people to reach you?
Best way for people to reach us is go to embody.space. We have our link tree there. We're on the socials we're most active on are Instagram and TikTok right now. that could change. And then you can always reach out to me individually at Anna@embody.space.
Awesome. Yeah, actually, about the TikTok thing, I know you guys are active in TikTok. How do you see this potential new ban hitting you guys? Is that going to be concerning? What's the
I don't
expectations?
know. I mean, we're really focusing on other platforms right now and trying to get our audience on TikTok there. But oh my gosh, for better or for worse, I avoided TikTok for a long time, but their algorithm for reaching new crowd is just insane. And so it's our highest converter in terms of new downloads. So I'm really interested to see what happens. Yeah, we're on the edge of our seat.
Awesome. Well, we hope today's conversation inspired you to think critically about the future of health innovation and the role we can all play in building systems that prioritize trust, transparency, and efficiency. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review to help us reach more listeners passionate about revolutionizing healthcare. Until next time, stay healthy, stay innovative, and keep your mind and ideas unchained. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, we would greatly appreciate it if you can take a moment to share your thoughts about the show by writing a review and rating the show on your podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach a wider audience and enhance the overall quality of the show. Don't forget to encourage your friends, mentors, teams, and students to tune in and subscribe as well. Thank you for your support. Check out healthunchained.org and subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you enjoy podcasts. Join the premium Health Unchained Supercast community by going to healthunchained.supercast.com, which gets you access to ad-free episodes, and join the official Telegram community group for the latest updates.